You have these musannafat, but the actual rigor was not in the musannafat. The Muwatta is proven by Ibn Abdul Barr later to be, because Imam Malik has these marasil, he has hadiths that are, there's a break in the chain. And so, but Ibn Abdul Barr shows how all of them were actually sound, which proves that Imam Malik radiallahu anhu knew the people that he was relating from. But the Musannafat did not have that type of rigor. And so it was Imam Al-Bukhari's teacher who said to him, and Imam Al-Bukhari was very young at this time, he said to him that he wished that somebody would write only the Sahih hadith, only the hadiths that have been absolutely confirmed and without any doubt in them. And so Imam al-Bukhari initially, obviously he planted the seed in his head, but he had a dream in which the Prophet ﷺ was there, and Imam al-Bukhari had a fan, and he was fanning away like things from the Prophet that would bother him. And so he went to one of the mu'abbirin, and he asked him what it meant. And he said, you're going to remove lies that people claim that the Prophet ﷺ, things they claim he said. So you're going to, in the same way Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu had a famous, he saw the Prophet ﷺ, the grave, and he saw the bones, and then they weren't assembled properly, and he put them together. That was a sign of the type fiqh that he would create. So these were deeply spiritual people that were having amazing dreams, in which a lot of signs would come to them. So Imam al-Bukhari begins to write his Sahih, but even before that, he's a miracle child. He's born in Bukhara, and when he was born, his mother, she had a dream that because he went blind, that he would be cured of his blindness, and then she dedicated him to learning. So he had initially a sickness where he lost his sight, and then his sight came back. Anything he could hear, he could memorize. He just had a completely photographic memory. So anything that he could hear. And modern people have a very difficult time because many of you, when you were young, probably in school, they did what was called telephone. Does anybody remember that? Did you have to do that? So they have, in the classroom, the teacher writes something, and then the child, they look at it, but then they can't pass it on. They just whisper into the ear of the student, and the next student whispers into the ear until it goes through the whole class. Everybody laughs at the end because it's always completely mangled. So it's completely a different, what was the teacher had originally written. And what they want to show you is how unreliable transmission is. That's the idea behind it. Well, that's the very point of this tradition, is to make sure only reliable people, because I guarantee if you took 50 Mauritanians who studied in this, or even in Sus in Al-Maghrib, these students of the madrasa tradition, and you did the same thing with them, it would be the same at the end of the chain. And that's simply, anybody who's seen this, there's a famous story of Mayab, I think, where when he was in Mali, he saw two people get into a fight, and they spoke Bambara. And one of them ended up getting killed. So the police, they wanted to know who started the fight. And he didn't know the language, but he was able to say what each one of them said just from hearing it. There's many stories of that in our tradition. So Imam Bukhari, when he went to Baghdad, for instance, they mangled up all of the riwayat. So you have the metan, which is the hadith, the actual content of the hadith, and then you have the sanad, or the chain, or the isnad, it's also called. So what they did was they took all these hadiths, each one took 10, each one of the sheikhs took 10, and they would mangle the hadith, and they would put the wrong chains. They'd mix up the chains and then put the wrong chains with the matan. So they wanted to test him. And so when he came to Baghdad, and he was tested in Basra as well, in different places. This was something the ulama did. So when they tested him, he listened to the first man do his, and each one he just said, La a'rifuhu. I don't know that hadith. And then the next one, he said, La a'rifuhu. And then the next one, La a'rifuhu. So they started thinking he doesn't know anything because he's not even correcting them. And so they actually begin to wonder if this man is who people say he is. So when they all finished, he said, are you done? And he said, yes. He said, the first one, and then he actually gave the correction he said, this is the correct chain, and he did all 10, then the next, and then the next, until he finished the 100 hadiths. And he corrected all of them. After hearing them recited, he knew both the wrong recitation, and then he corrected each one. And at that point, they surrendered to him as the hafiz of his time. So he had this prodigious memory, but he was also a faqih. And one of the things about the sahih is that he has yatasarraf. So he'll actually bring insights into these things. There's also, if you look at some of the hadiths, like for instance, in the chapter on the prohibition of killing with fire, he has the hadith of Imam Ali from Palestine. So what he's showing in that is that he knows the hadith, and he doesn't accept, the hukm of that hadith. He does this very often in the book. He also, according to the tradition, for every single hadith that he narrates, he did istikhara, and he prayed 2 rakats. And many of them he did in the haram. He was in Mecca and Medina, and he traveled to many places to get hadith. So he's just an extraordinary person. When he went to Samarkand, they said they came out about more than 12 miles to greet him, like throngs of people. This is how, it's how respected knowledge was. Like people really respected knowledge. So they would come out. And traditionally, people would come out to greet wufud and things like that. It's just part of the Islamic tradition. The wafd is like it's a good translation for wafd. Huh? Delegation, yeah, like a delegation or a group of people that are traveling for some purpose. So Imam Al-Bukhari, one of the things that they said, don't ask him about lafz al-Quran. Is it makhluq or not makhluq? Because there was a big fitna at that time. And so when they got in, the first day everything went fine, second day went fine. On the third day, somebody asked him, ماذا تقول في لفظ القرآن? Like, what do you say about لفظ القرآن? And he said, اللفظ من الأفعال والأفعال مخلوقة. To utter is from the actions of a human being, and the actions are created. So then they went, oh, he's saying Quran is created. So it created a fitna for him. And then he said, oh, so you're saying the Quran is created? He said, no, Quran غير مخلوق. And he said, وَالِامْتِحَانْ bid'ah. But to test people like this is a bid'ah. Because that's what a lot of people like to do. They want to just suss you out to put you into some kind of box. So they'll ask you, oh, what do you say about this? What do you say about that? What do you say about that? And they're really trying to catch you out. And that is a bid'ah. So it took him 16 years to put this book together. There's 97 chapters. It has over 7,000 hadith, but there are several that are mukarrar, often not with the same chain, but they're replicated. And so he basically has about 4,000 that aren't, and over 2,000 that are directly from the Prophet ﷺ. So